Part of the reason that we're in the mess we're in as a country right now is same folks, same ideas, same talking points.
And the latest sensation is to dismiss older people by saying, okay, boomer.
Here's the pattern that defines an entire generation. They went from protesting the Vietnam War to making fortunes on Wall Street. From Woodstock to waterfront property portfolios. From question authority bumper stickers to refusing to retire from positions of authority they've held for decades. The baby boomers.
Baby boomers are the wealthiest generation in history.
What the fuck?
Born between the mid-40s and mid-60s. Not all of them are terrible, but if you had to identify one generation responsible for the economic hollowing out of America, one cohort that consistently chose their own comfort over their children's futures, it would be this one. Their fathers returned from liberating Europe and Asia, and this is what they bequeathed us?
I don't bloody have no fucking bloody.
Here's what makes them locusts rather than just a selfish generation. Locusts don't destroy out of malice. They destroy because consuming everything in their path is simply what they do. And when the boomers are done, they move on to bigger houses, longer retirements, more accumulated wealth, leaving nothing for what comes next. It's not a conscious choice to devastate. It's just their nature. Every economic growth decision of the last several decades has followed the same pattern. Will this benefit the boomer generation? If yes, proceed. If it hurts young people, proceed anyway. The question of legacy, of what they're leaving behind, simply doesn't register.
Are you serious right now, bro?
Because locusts don't think about the field after they've moved through it. And make no mistake, the field is devastated. Housing markets locked up by people who won't downsize. Job markets clogged by people who won't retire. Wealth concentrated in hands that keep accumulating instead of circulating. An entire economy structured around the comfort of one generation, while their grandchildren, who they claim to adore, face prospects their grandparents would have considered dystopian. The pattern reveals itself everywhere once you recognize it. Political leaders clinging to office into their 80s. CEOs with no succession plans. Homeowners retiring into larger properties while their children live in apartments too small to start families. Teachers who spent every class telling stories about how they were at Woodstock, as if everyone in America was at Woodstock, as if their participation in one weekend made them prophets for all time. But here's the thing. Understanding how we got here requires examining what made this generation unique. Because the locust behavior wasn't inevitable. It was cultivated by specific circumstances that created perhaps the most narcissistic, least sacrifice-capable cohort in modern history. Start with the absence of shared hardship. Every previous generation that faced major wars got indoctrinated, rightly or wrongly, in sacrifice. We're fighting for your wives and children. We're building something bigger than ourselves. Delayed gratification became reflexive because survival demanded it. The boomers faced no comparable crucible. Prosperity arrived early and stayed. They didn't learn sacrifice because they never needed it. And when they had kids, the question became, why are you in the way of me enjoying whatever I want to enjoy in this moment? Children weren't the purpose, they were the obstacle. Keep that framework in mind. We'll return to it. Add mass marketing arriving at industrial scale. Madison Avenue discovered it could manufacture desire, create needs that didn't exist, transform possessions into identity. The boomers were advertised to death, from childhood onward.
Rich walnut color feels good when you hold it, and it's free.
When you want to feel that tar going deep into your lungs, try Lumberjack cigarettes.
Consumption became not just acceptable, but virtuous. Proof you'd made it. Proof you mattered. Proof you existed. Then, entertainment replacing meaning. They became the first generation to watch World War II documentaries and feel pride for accomplishments they never achieved. Sitting on comfortable couches, eating cake while watching footage of Normandy, somehow convinced they'd inherited that valor. The disconnect was total, and nobody seemed to notice. This is the generation that cried at beer commercials. Actually cried.
Are you serious right now, bro?
Their emotional life became so intertwined with advertising that corporate messaging could trigger genuine feeling. They entertained themselves to death, as the title goes. And the entertainment convinced them that consumption equaled achievement. Finally, the drugs changed form, but the addiction never wavered. The Woodstock generation gets remembered as progressive, free-loving, idealistic. Strip away the mythology, and you're left with something simpler. Selfish drug addicts who enjoyed sex in the mud and heroin. That's not necessarily damning by itself. I mean, who doesn't love heroin, right? But the boomers proved the underlying ideology was always hollow, because when circumstances changed, so did they. The drug just became money. The high just became status. The self-interest never wavered. It just found new outlets. They chased their own gratification like dogs chasing steaks, and the costume changed, but the behavior stayed identical. When being liberal stopped serving their interests, they became conservative. When environmentalism threatened their waterfront properties, they dismissed it while still demanding pristine nature for their personal enjoyment. This exposes the fundamental lie of that era. There was no belief system. There was live-action role-playing rebellion. It was performance art with no substance underneath. Jerry Rubin went from yippie to yuppie. John Kerry went from protesting Vietnam to embodying the establishment. The whole generation revealed that their rebellion was just another form of self-indulgence. The locust behavior gets built one contradiction at a time. They'll scream about politicians being too old while refusing to retire themselves at similar ages. They'll complain about housing costs while refusing to sell homes that would free up inventory. They'll lecture about environmental responsibility while demanding to live on the water. They're against immigration but adore the cheap labor it provides for their housekeepers and nannies. Everything is for them. The nature should be pristine for them. The markets should be free, except for the assets they're sitting on. The government should spend less on programs for other people. Every principle bends immediately when their comfort is at stake. Housing reveals the locust path most clearly. Previous generations followed a pattern. Build equity through working years, downsize in retirement, release that equity back into circulation. Move to Florida, get the condo, free up the suburban house for the young family that needs it. That circulation kept the system functional. Not perfect, but functional. Boomers devoured that pattern entirely. They're not downsizing. They're retiring into larger homes, treating real estate as trophies rather than resources that should circulate. The big house isn't shelter. It's their entire sense of self-worth, crystallized into square footage. And the idea of releasing it registers as existential threat. Watch them in these suburban castles and the absurdity becomes clear. Many have attained no wisdom despite decades of living. Genuinely impressive given how difficult that should be.
Wow!
They've read no books about anything meaningful. They have zero perspective on history or context. But every argument ends the same way. They point at the house. That's their rebuttal. That's their proof they're right. Their kids are being held hostage. The entire economy is being held hostage. You can't buy a house that isn't for sale. You can't take a job that won't open up. You can't build wealth when the previous generation is actively expanding their holdings instead of releasing them. The locusts are still feeding, and there's nothing left for what comes after. The cruelest part isn't even the consumption itself. It's the complete lack of awareness that consumption is happening. They genuinely don't understand why their children are struggling. They bought houses at reasonable prices in their 20s, so why can't their kids? They advanced up corporate ladders that have room for movement, so why can't their children? The devastation is so complete, they can't even see it anymore. Remember that framework about sacrifice? The greatest generation measured success by whether their children surpassed them. That was the dream. Build something your kids can use as a foundation to go further. The boomers inverted it entirely. Their dream was to have the greatest lives they could for themselves. Children didn't complete that dream. They inhibited it. This wasn't subtext. It showed up everywhere. The comedy that resented children. The cool mom and cool dad drinking with their kids, getting high with their kids, falling down drunk in front of their kids. No disconnect between adult and child because they refused to accept the role of adult. They wanted to be peers with their children while simultaneously hoarding every resource their children needed to actually build adult lives.
Even their teachers were insufferable. Every sentence contained multiple cliches strung together to create feeling without meaning. I was at Woodstock. I remember when Kennedy was shot, the day the music died. Just evocative phrases creating sentiment without substance. They were idiots, yes, but above all, they were about themselves. They lectured endlessly about the civil rights movement, while the actual supposed beneficiaries of that movement declined. They didn't care. It was only about feeling good about themselves, about claiming moral authority for participation in events that often amounted to attending a concert or two. The self-congratulation never stopped. The Locust generation produced one good thing: some excellent music in the early 70s. Other than that, a trail of devastation. Horrible people who cannot accept any responsibility for what they participated in creating. And here's the kicker. They've had the greatest run imaginable. Markets that only went up. Houses that only appreciated. An embedded growth obligation where things just kept getting better for them specifically. And now they're trying to squeeze the last juice from a lemon that's already dry, leaving a crummy, unrecognizable wasteland in their wake. Their grandchildren, who they claim to adore, yeah right, face an intergenerational war the boomers started and refuse to acknowledge. Because acknowledging it would require admitting that maybe their generation isn't the center of history. Maybe their comfort isn't the only thing that matters. We've reached the point where the devastation is undeniable. An entire generation waiting for inheritance that will arrive in their 50s and 60s. Too late to use for the house down payment they needed in their 20s. Too late to invest in the business they could have started in their 30s. Too late for everything except watching the pattern repeat. Accumulation at the top, nothing left below. The Locusts don't care about legacy, because legacy requires thinking beyond yourself. It requires accepting that your time ends and something else begins. It requires making space, releasing resources, acknowledging that after me isn't just words. It's people who deserve the same opportunities you had. But here's the reality. The field will recover, eventually. Not because the Locusts chose to stop consuming, because they'll die. Demographics guarantee it. The question is how much gets devoured before that happens, and whether there's anything left to rebuild with when they're finally gone. The clock is running. The consumption continues. And everyone watching from the devastated field wonders if the Locusts will ever stop, or if they'll just keep feeding until there's nothing left but dust and the memory of what used to grow here. The Locusts don't care which option unfolds. They'll be gone before the consequences arrive. But we should care, because we're the ones who have to live in what's left.